everyone that I know loves an amazing story. Moreover, everyone that I know loves a great movie. To that point, recently, action movies and thrillers have been all the craze at the box office. And as a matter of fact, most people are fascinated with action movies and with thrillers that involve where there is a good person that is the protagonist against the bad person. That's called what? The antagonist. One of the earliest movies that my wife said that she remembers as a child, and I had to ask my wife because my first movie I remember wasn't so appropriate. Juice. I remember Juice? Leave that alone. She said it was The Lion King. And she remembered, not the new one, the original one, y'all. The original. And she remembered the thrill and the action of Simba versus who? Scar. As I mentioned, even in recent times, even in this past summer, Marvel's The Avenger movie Endgame became the highest grossing movie of all time. Just FYI, Black Panther is number 10 on the list. Endgame and Black Panther and Lion King alike are all alike because at the bare bones of their plot, there is a good person versus a bad person. There's this depiction of good versus evil. Young people and not so young people, this morning, would you believe me if I told you that this idea of good versus evil is not original to the movie theater? Would you believe me if I told you that it's not even just an idea at all? Because as a matter of fact, spoiler alert, in the Bible, the Apostle Paul tells us that our struggle is not against flesh and is not against blood, but it is against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world and spiritual forces of evil. So the next time I want to submit to you that you think that an attack on you is personal, guess what? It's not. It's just spiritual. The next time, and you know what? It's Youth Sunday. Can I juke you on this beat for just 1 second? Because the next time that you think that someone is messing with you because it's a personal attack, guess what? It's just spiritual. And the next time that your money is acting funny, your change is acting just a little bit strange, it's not a personal attack. Guess what? It's just spiritual. It's spiritual. It's spiritual. Look at someone and high five them and tell them that it's spiritual. It's spiritual. It's spiritual. It's spiritual. And that's why Paul wrote in his letter, right here where we are this morning, to the letter of Galatians. He wrote and he writes this letter, as a matter of fact, to a region called Galatia. Chapter 5, verse 16, we've already read it, when it says, walk by the Spirit. Yes. And you will not gratify the desires of your flesh. Yes. As we deal with the passage today, it is important to highlight the context of not only what Paul says in his letter, but it is equally important to highlight who Paul is writing to when he uses these words. Can I break this down real quick? Paul is writing to a region called Galatia. We can't floss by this too fast because if we do, you'll miss the depth in our passage today. The region of Galatia is important to note because in this region of Galatia is this interesting city called Antioch. in Acts chapter 11 will tell you that it was in the city of Antioch where people were first called Christians. So the letter of Galatians was actually written to, guess what? Christians. You know what? This very well may have been people that have heard either firsthand or secondhand about what Jesus had did. And these very well may be people that very well could have met one of the disciples. Because he's writing not to new believers, but he's writing to people that have already believed in their hearts and confessed with their mouths that Jesus Christ is Lord. So let me bring this first century letter into the 21st century, because this is comparable to, imagine if you will, a letter being written to the northeastern corridor region of the United States. Imagine, if you will, that in the northeastern region of the United States, there's a city called New Haven. Are you with me? And in this city of New Haven are a community of people that call themselves Community Baptist Church. And to these people is this letter where Paul is reminding these community of people, where Paul is reminding you and I, big brothers and big sisters, and little brothers and little sisters, to walk by the Spirit. Paul reminds us to walk by the Spirit, and for our time's sake today, I'm only going to merely rock on this verse just for a little bit. The word in our English, where we get the word walk, is actually a compound word in the original language. That word is two parts. The first part is peri. Somebody say peri. And the second part is pateo. I hear you, little man. Peri is the same word where we get the word perimeter. And a perimeter is the distance around a designated or specific area. Peri is the same word where we get our word perihodos, which denotes a cycle or a period of time. And that's the same word where we get our English word period. Peri is the same word where we get our English word pericardium, which is the area around the heart. Cardium is our word for heart. That's where we get cardiology and cardiologists. So Paul tells us to peripateo in the Spirit. He reminds us that if there's anyone that we should be around, if there's anyone that we should be spending time with, if there's anyone that we should allow in and near our hearts, it is the Spirit. Paul is sharing with us, reminding us of the freedom that we have from bondage, of the world, and of sin. When we seek the Spirit to be around us, when we seek the Spirit to spend time with us, and when we seek the Spirit to fill our hearts. I cannot help but be reminded of the account in Exodus chapter 33 when Moses told God, I don't want to go anywhere where you are not. My points that I'll be sharing with you will be in the form of questions. And the first series of questions are this, that I want to encourage you to take mental note, put in your phone or jot down. And this is, who am I around? Who am I spending time with? And who is around my heart? Who am I around? Who is spending my time? And who is around my heart? Paul tells us to walk by the Spirit. That's the first part that he tells us to do. The second part that Paul tells us to do is in this verse, and it says, and you will not gratify the desires of your flesh. Allow me to clarify this for just one moment, because this should be understood as an if-then statement or an if-then condition. That is to say, Paul is implying that when you walk by the Spirit, and because you walk by the Spirit, then the desires of your flesh you will not desire. Does this make sense to you? Can I keep it real with you? The desires of our flesh seem so sweet, y'all. It seems so sweet. It appears it is so easy to give in to sin. And little brothers and little sisters, if you haven't been there, guess what? Keep on living a little bit longer, because you'll experience it. Come on, somebody. Keep on living and being encouraged, because I can guarantee that right here in Community Baptist that there are a great cloud of witnesses that have lived a little bit longer than you and can share with you their story of how they've made it over and how they're making it over. Paul tells us just like this, that when you heard about Christ, you were taught in Him in accordance with the truth that is in Jesus, you were taught. With regard to your former way of life, Paul says to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, and to be made new in the attitudes of your minds. And to put on, get this, the new self. Somebody say new self. The new self. Created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. Ephesians chapter 4. So, Paul tells us to put on this new self. So the next time that someone tells you that you're acting brand new, you can respond and tell them, y'all, brand new, as a matter of fact. New cars smell new. That's how new I am. You are brand new because old things have passed away. And behold, all things are new. As a matter of fact, we probably should have a little ceremony right now. We'll tell the old us goodbye and put it 6 feet under and tell it ashes to ashes, dust to dust, earth to earth. All things are new. When we walk by the Spirit. I'm reminded of when Paul walked by the Spirit and literally was with God, and in the Bible he says his countenance had changed. Paul had even looked different. I'm reminded in the Bible of when Mary said yes to the Spirit, literally an angel of God, and her body began to experience changes. All because she said yes to the Spirit. I'm reminded in the Bible, of course, when Jesus, who literally was God, walked by the Spirit, and the deaf received sound, and the blind eyes were able to see, and the lame could walk, and the price of sin was paid. All because he walked by the Spirit. And I can only wonder, and I can only imagine what New Haven, Connecticut, and how New Haven, Connecticut might be young people from Community Baptist Church that wouldn't mind being a brand new. Brand new with a new blessing. Brand new with a new purpose. All because they did not give in to the desires of their flesh. As a result of you walking by the Spirit. Which brings me to the second question that I would love for you to ponder and love for you to think about in your devotional time. Small groups, Bible studies this week. And that is, if I still desire the flesh, what is keeping me from walking by the Spirit? Amen. If I still desire the flesh, what is keeping me from walking by the Spirit? I see you thinking. I hope this is landing well. Walk by the Spirit, then the desires of your flesh you will not desire. And even when you walk by the Spirit, I can only imagine Mary as a pregnant teenager. When she said yes to the Spirit, her appetite began to change. Because the things that one desires when you walk by the Spirit, they look a little bit differently and taste a little bit differently. And your appetite changes from before when you walk by the Spirit. And this is the entire idea, this is the entire thesis of the message of Galatians. And that is centered around the idea of freedom in the Spirit. In this letter, Paul shares that Christians are free from ritual, Christians are free from legalism, and we are free in the Spirit. When we walk by the Spirit. And we can't deal with Galatians chapter 5 without dealing with the last couple of verses in this chapter. I don't think I will be invited back if I did. Because Galatians chapter 5, before we get to the idea of good versus evil that Paul begins to articulate in his later letter to the Ephesians, Paul begins to build this contrast of good versus evil. And he does this in Galatians chapter 5 verses 19 through 23. He paints this contrast as he pits good versus evil. That is, the acts of the flesh versus the fruits of the Spirit. The acts of the flesh, these are acts of humanity. These are performances, or as the original language uses, these are works that people try to put on. These are evil. Then there are, on the other hand, the fruits of the Spirit. The fruits of the Spirit. The fruit is good, and the word fruit indicates works that flesh cannot produce. Works that flesh cannot produce. Can I pause on this for just literally 2 sentences? And that is, Paul's point in using the word fruit in its original language was beyond if it is singular or plural, right? That is the argument of the conversation of if it is one fruit or if it is many fruits. It's beyond that. Let me share that Paul's main point in the language and in the words that he used was to indicate that something happens when it is originated or comes from another source. Let me say that one more time. Because works or the acts of the flesh are things that, and performances and works that people are trying to put on. These are something that you're trying to do. But the fruit of the Spirit is something that is an indication that something is happening because it is originating from another source. Remember, Paul was writing to Christians. And so they would have remembered hearing about, whether it was first-hand or second-hand account, when Jesus told them and said to them that I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. When he said, abide in me, and I in who? You. And the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine. No more can you do except you abide in me. Jesus goes on, this is John chapter 15, by the way. I am the vine, you are the branches. Except you abide in me, and I in you, you will be able to bring forth much fruit. And without me, you cannot do anything. I love how Jesus keeps on going. He says that if you abide in me, and my words abide in you, he says, you can ask what you will, and it will be done unto you according to, let's not shout yet, according to my Father, so that he may be glorified. So that you can bear much fruit. This will be a sign that you are my disciples. This just isn't an idea of, is it fruit or is it fruits? Is it one piece or is it many pieces? The larger idea is that I can't grow it myself. Because I can't be loved, I can't be patient, and I can't be kind out of the work of my flesh. But it's because I'm connected. Because I'm connected. That's an indication of whom I'm connected to. Does this make sense? Last and final question that I want you to think about. He said, yes, finally. Are you connected to Jesus? Are you connected to Jesus? Yes. Because in order to walk by the Spirit, you have to check your connection to the vine. My very first car that I had at the age of 16 was it was not a 2000 anything. At the age of 16 was a 1989 Nissan Sentra. Fun fact, my car was 3 years younger than me. Oftentimes when I had this vehicle, when I had this car, called it a red apple. It was red on the outside, the inside was that polyester material, I don't know what it was. But every once in a while, I would have some car trouble. And the issue and the trouble that I would have is that when I sat down in the driver's seat and I would go to turn the key, I would hear click, 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 but the car would not turn over. So one day, my father finally told me, well, son, you have to go and check the connection of the battery to the car. Because there's nothing that's wrong with the battery. I just put a new battery on the inside. So you probably have to go and check the connection of the terminal to the car. And lo and behold, when I went and put on my mechanic hat, because I thought I was a mechanic, I popped open the hood. And to my discovery, I noticed that there was some corrosion around the posts on the battery that was preventing the connection and preventing the energy from getting to the car. Community Baptist Church, I just stopped by to tell you this morning that the only thing that you need to do this morning in order to make sure that your connection is ensured, is good and is sure, is to pop the hood of your life this morning. So look underneath the hood and to check your young people. I want you to hear me clearly. As you head back to school, you've already started school, week 1 and week 2, is that right? See some heads now. Your challenge from your community and your challenge from your pastor this year, this semester, is to walk by the Spirit. It's not always going to be popular. It's not always going to look good. It's not always going to feel good. As a matter of fact, as I already mentioned, your friends and your peers and your classmates will think that something is wrong with you. That as a matter of fact, you came back into this school year acting brand new. And you can tell them that yes, as a matter of fact, something is new. And then you can be salt, and then you can be light, right in your classroom, and right in your class, in your lab, in whatever your classes you may be, and people will be able to see God working through you. Not just by the words that come out of your mouth, but by your deeds and by how you act and by how you behave. One of my favorite quotes of all time is by St. Francis of Assisi. And this is when it's quoted or paraphrased, if you will. And it says, and to preach always, and only use words when necessary. To preach always, and to only use words when necessary. How might you be able to impact your best friend? How might you be able to impact your class? How might you be able to impact your school? If you preached always by how you behaved and how you acted, and you only had to use words when necessary. That's my challenge to you, little sisters. That's my challenge to you, little brothers. Is to walk by the Spirit. So that you will not have to have any desires or have an appetite for anything of the flesh. You can put a sign up that says preoccupied. There's no vacancy. There's no vacancy. Because you have decided, whether in school or at work, to walk by the Spirit.